And I'm going to start off by just asking, as from the perspective of a current university student, right? What direction do you believe, and I'll start off with Gavin for this one, what direction do you believe undergraduate students can take to start making their way into this whole working abroad scene, even before completing their university tenure?
So, wow, the direction. So, the what's happening now with tech is it's very, very broad. So, I always encourage people to try and identify what it is that they are interested in, because there are so many things they can specialize in. They can go within sub levels of sub levels and still make a good living just focusing on a very specific thing. So first I'd say find out what it is that you're really interested in doing, because if you're going to have to do it on a daily basis, might as well it be something that you genuinely enjoy. So first I encourage them, find your interests. What type of activities do you find interesting, and then try to find the careers in that industry based on research online that would match your interests and your passions, and go all in.
All right, so thank you, Gavin. Gavin is saying to find your interest even before you finish your university tenure and start to hone in on it. I'm going to go over to Jody with that same question because, as you know, she said she graduated from NYU and is now working at Google. What are some of the things you did, Jody, before even finishing your tenure at NYU that would have helped you to reach where you are now?
Thank you, Daniel. I think community is very, very important. In addition to finding your interests, as Gavin mentioned earlier, you want to find other people who probably have those interests. And you want to be able to, one, add value, and two, receive value from that group. At NYU, and even before NYU, I've found a lot of value in different communities that align with things that I was interested in, with comprising of people who were at my level as well as above my level, kind of like where I wanted to be. And so I was connected with those individuals, expanding your network, knowing people in different places will open up opportunities to be in some of those places. So I think that's one thing I would go with, sticking close to the community.
All right, so we've heard find your interests and also find your community, both of which would help you to start building that network and that platform that is necessary to start getting some of these remote jobs. Now, Camir, I'm going to go over to you. So I believe that you went to Herbert Morrison, right? And then you went over to Cornell. And can you please explain for us what that journey was like in terms of finding the area that you're interested in, or finding your interest, like Gavin said, and then using that to now land you jobs overseas?
Yeah, I mean, just to correct, so I went to Herbert Morrison, then I went to University of Georgia, and then because I did my undergraduate degree at University of Georgia, then my PhD at Cornell. And for me, it was, at each step, I just tried to make the best decision for me in that moment, because it sometimes get overwhelming. You try to like plot out everything, what is the perfect route through. So for me, I knew finishing high school, I was very much interested in computer science, and I was also interested in genetics and the life sciences. So I chose a university that would give me a strong foundation in both of those. So I went to university, I majored in microbiology, minor in computer science, and kind of did both of those during undergrad, until I discovered that computational biology existed, like something that combined both things. And then from that moment on, now that I had that singular focus, then I started looking for opportunities. So I'm big on exploring interests like tangibly. So if you think you're curious about something, find an opportunity to get your hands, doing it, get actual experience, instead of like reading a bunch of articles, or even talking to people is useful. But if there's a situation where you can go intern, you can go volunteer and do it, then that is the most valuable piece of information. So for me, that's what I did through undergrad a lot, was looking for opportunities that would allow me to experience, okay, what is it like, doing stuff that a computational biologist would do at the next level, and that kind of thing. And that was big for me, because then that also exposed me, along with what Jody was saying, to the people who are doing those things. And I'm big on networking, and how valuable that is as you kind of navigate your career journey. So a lot of that is integral in terms of eventually being set up in the right situation to find opportunities and landing a job.
All right, great. I'm going to follow up on one of the points that you mentioned, which was to, sometimes if you look at the overall big picture, it can get overwhelming. And so instead,
Mm-hmm.
you chose to look at it, individually at each step-by-step
Mm-hmm.
basis. If you take us back to maybe when you were still out here in Jamaica, looking at the opportunities locally and abroad and choosing which one was the best path for you, can you take us back to what you would have been thinking in that moment and why you chose to go abroad?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was so I was finishing. I was in sixth form when I was doing the life sciences, and then in the evenings I was doing an associate degree in IT. So I was very much, at that point, I figured eventually I would have to pick either go be a software engineer or go be a scientist because I didn't think they had any overlap at that point. And I was lucky enough to have, I volunteered in a couple labs at UWI, a couple science lab, biotechnology, and so on. So I was very, very comfortable thinking that I was going to go and do undergrad at UWI and hopefully go pursue science there. So my me ending up studying abroad was really somebody mentioned to my mom, maybe I should look into it. Is it the opportunity? Is it a potential for me? Because I was never really somebody who that was the goal. Because and I think a lot of times where you go to school, some schools have very much that kind of culture where their students are kind of taught to that's what you need to pursue. So that wasn't me. It was more so towards the end of my high school career. Someone was like, look into it. So I did the SATs and applied to one school abroad, one university in the US, because I was like, if I get into the one school I go, then it's fate. I'm supposed to leave because I wasn't, all my friends going to UE, all that kind of stuff. I was kind of hoping to hang around with them. So it wasn't something that it was really one school in the US. I was like, if I get in, that I'm meant to go, and if not, then I already had my UE acceptance at that time, so I'm good going to UE. But I was definitely hearing, and I knew a lot of the reasons why that a professor would suggest that to my mom and so on was because of the view that there are not a lot of opportunities for especially as a scientist, right, in Jamaica. Research and that kind of stuff isn't as valued as it could be abroad. So I was very much aware of that being a consideration for why, and that's why a lot of people, even especially if you want to do science, will be thinking along that route. But in the moment, I was cool either way.
Thank
But
you.
I'm definitely happy with how it turned out.
All right, cool. Thank you for that response. So, Javon, I'm going right over to you. Now, you studied here locally at UWI, and you've still been able to get remote jobs at some of the biggest companies across the world, really. So, I want to hear from you. What were you doing throughout your university tenure and after in order to make yourself marketable here from Jamaica?
Yeah. So for me, yeah, it started like really early from my first year at UA. I got into open source really, really quickly, and I just really dived in there, started doing a lot of open source work, and just built on that throughout my years at university. So I used that to kind of build my online presence, which is what I deduced was the only thing I could really use to get in front of all these big recruiters because I learned quickly they don't necessarily send recruiters to Jamaica to look at people, but they are looking online for everyone. So I worked really hard to improve, my online presence and being able to see the work I could actually do online, and I did that through open source. But even that wasn't enough. I also saved up a lot of money and tried my best to, attend back pre-COVID when conferences were a thing. I think I used that as my big end. I went to a lot of the conferences up there, sent myself there, met people, even applied to some of them, pitched some things and built kind of a network there and friends up there. And then that tying in with my, the work I did online just kind of gave me the advantages to kind of felt like I started getting in front of them. The emails start going from unanswered. Okay, let's actually interview this guy, and then yeah, I took it from there.
All right, cool. So what I'm hearing from you, one, is the importance of, again, building your community and network, as Jody had said, but you're speaking to now starting to go to conferences, attending webinars like this one, but also international webinars or regional webinars that are within the subject area or, the interest area that you have overall. Now, you also mentioned a very important point around online presence and using that to also build your network and help you to access jobs internationally. So I'd love to hear from anyone. How have you used your online presence, or what role does social media, LinkedIn, etc. play? Anyone can volunteer in terms of helping you to secure that international network and international remote jobs.
I guess I can just continue with
Sure.
an example where I was working on a simple script that could help run some processes in parallel for emulators running together. And I needed something to demo that with. And I needed an open source app to work on for that, because I didn't want to build an app just to demo it. It'd be a waste of time. So the WordPress app was open source. And I started using that to do my demonstration, just for my own personal fun at the time. But then it started becoming so much work. I wondered, why shouldn't I get paid for this? And I literally emailed the recruiter at Automatic what I was doing, and I'd like to get paid for it. And then we kind of started the interview process with that, and then I ended up starting getting paid for it. So that was kind of how I kind of used my online presence to kind of get into that role.
All right, thank you, Javon. Anybody else wants to also comment online presence? How did that help you?
Sure, I could contribute. So for me, I'm very active on LinkedIn, and when I just left Jamaica for the job, one of the things that they liked, even though it wasn't social media per se, they were really impressed with my website. So I invested in my personal branding, and it was a talking point. So when I landed in Germany and actually met the team face to face, they were like, "Hey, this is the guy that has the website," and so it's I think investing in your own branding and having control over your image online and having things that people can search, do a Google search and find on you, it helps to validate what you claim to be talking about, and especially your writing. So when people can find articles that you've written, it gives them an insight into how you think, and even your writing skills, because they always say in the job descriptions, you should have good oral and written skills and that type of thing. So having a website, for me, even though it was promoted on social media, on LinkedIn and Twitter and such, having a website for me was something that I believe differentiated me from a lot of the other candidates who may have even had similar experience or qualifications. So, that was a little thing that I found useful, and I encourage others to do. GitHub and GitLab, all of that type of thing, but something that is yours.
Gavin, that's such an important point, because again, when I also get jobs internationally or locally, one of the big things they also say is, wow, you have a portfolio or something online that I can see to validate, one, that you actually are competent in whatever area it is that you're speaking on, and two, essentially you could be a brand ambassador for my company, because essentially that's what an employee is, right? So you're going to do the work, yes, but you're also representing the company's brand, their image, and whatever it is that they're bringing across. So it's very important that you have some kind of space, especially virtually in this digital era, that showcases who you are. And as Gavin said, you have to invest in that, and you have to spend time developing that narrative for yourself, for whichever industry it is that you'd like to go into. And I'm going to use that question to go into the next one, which is, how does volunteerism, right? So things that you voluntarily do, organizations you may create, etc. How does that help to build your profile when you're trying to land remote jobs? And I'm going to direct that one to Jody first, because I know Jody is one of the co-founders for TechPorts. How has that helped you in your career and your journey overall?
Thank you, Danielle. I think even before TechPorts, right, there are a lot of different initiatives and organizations that I've been a part of that led up to TechPort. While in undergrad, before I went to NYU, I was at a community college, and some of the initiatives that I got involved in, for instance, Women in Tech, I was the president of the programming club. I led different events. I was the point person that the department would go to if they needed something for the computer science department, as far as a student is concerned. That opened up a lot of doors into research. For instance, I was involved in research for a very long time. In terms of getting opportunities, I went to Brazil to also continue research based on the opportunities that I got before. So I think as a precursor to TechPorts, there are different initiatives. That's probably not something that you have to start. You don't have to start something like a TechPorts. You can also start right where you are within your different communities, being involved in different initiatives. If there is something that's happening and it's something that you want to be a part of, being proactive in terms of saying, listen, I know that you're trying to do XYZ. I would like to be a part of this. It doesn't necessarily matter if it's a paid opportunity or it's unpaid. I want to be a part of it. Is there anything that I could do? Please reach out to me. If you want to pitch them and say, okay, I have skills in XYZ, blah, blah, black sheep, you can also do that. It's a part of, putting yourself out there. It's kind of similar to what Javon said, that, I was working on this, but I also want to get paid for it. It's something similar to that. You'd have to put yourself where you want to be. And so having those opportunities opens doors for you because you are proactive, you're demonstrating competence, you're demonstrating the skills that you have, you're also getting value from it, you're increasing your networking capital, and so you're able to get more opportunities by being a part of these different initiatives. Now, if what you want does not exist, then you have to feel empowered to create it. You have to find others who want what you want as well. So essentially, people who want a solution to the same problem that you have. And then you create more opportunities that way, and you bring folks into the fold, so you're kind of just being the magnetic force here as opposed to joining forces with someone else. And all of the experiences before TechPorts, where I was involved in these initiatives, sort of prepared me to be in this position, right? And so it's not standalone by itself. There's a lot of smaller things that goes into the leading up to creating something as TechPorts. But there are different opportunities to be involved, and you have to be the person to say that I want to be involved in this, and this is how I'm going to go about being involved in it.
So Jody, one of the points you mentioned a while ago that I absolutely loved was that you said, if what you want does not currently exist, then you must feel empowered to create it, right? And overall, you're speaking to or alluding to this idea of taking initiative, just like Javon did when he said, yo, I'm working on this. I should be paid for it. Why not? Let's hit up Automatic and say, yo, what's the pre? That's exactly the kind of energy that we need to have as young people, to be so relentless and so willing and so excited about everything it is that we're passionate about, that we're willing to put ourselves out there. Even if we get a 1 no, a 2 no, a 3 no's, the fourth one could be a yes. And that idea of relentless pursuit for whatever it is that you're passionate about is important. But as we're pursuing all these different activities, it's very important for me to now ask, and I'm going to direct this question to Camir. How do you balance all these different activities alongside school that you're involved in? I know that you're now a graduate, but how did you balance all of these different activities within school so that you can be successful and be in the place that you're in now?
Yeah, I mean, I get that because I don't know if I ever mastered the balance. Like, I don't think I can come here and claim that, oh yeah, I got it down pack and so on. I think, for me, it was always kind of keeping at least my internal ranking of priorities, up to date and refresh. Like, what is most important to me in this moment? Like, my grades, exam is coming up, is final week coming up, whatever. All right, that have to get, added weight now, and that moves up to this, like, side project that, I've been secretly putting above my schoolwork because I actually really love that and so on. So is this constant juggling between that? But for a big part of it was just kind of surrounding myself. Again, always is go back to community and so on, where when I have people around me who are like-minded, really are striving after things and are there to motivate me when I feel like, okay, I might be overwhelmed, or somebody I can speak to. I think that helps me a lot, because at some time, the time really is fleeting, and you think you have X number of hours in a day, but you do one thing and then it's time for bed. So it's you're reliant on people in my circle to constantly be there, helping me along the way, being able to delegate certain things and not feel like you have to do everything yourself, especially when it comes to your passions or things you want to pursue. I think we have this tendency to, we think if we share the idea, somebody going to steal it. So we keep it to ourselves. We work on it ourselves. Is our thing, and when we're very very protective of it. But I think if we shared a lot more, we'd get people to like come on and at least ease the burden so that you can accomplish. You can get the good grades, you can do what you want to do in school and on the side and all that kind of stuff and build yourself in all these different arenas that you want. But for me, really, it was just constantly checking that priority. I was like, okay, what is the most important thing right now, and what I have to tackle. And I've gone through every version of task management. I had my physical notebook where I check off tasks. I use Asana, I use Jira, Trello, ClickUp, like whatever it is. Constantly asking friends of mine, what do you use to like manage, your time and your day and so on, because it's just a constant struggle. There's a constant struggle, and the procrastination, the temptation to procrastinate is real, no matter, even during the PhD, after PhD, it's just a thing that you have to manage at all times. So that's really what is just keeping the priority in check for sure.
I understand that. I see someone saying, not me using all these different project management apps and deleting them right after. Many of us
Exactly.
are just going through. Yeah. So I want to ask as well, each person here, how did you land the job that you currently have? Walk us through the process, because again, we have a very mixed group in our audience right now, but some I know are going to be students just like myself who are wondering, how can we, from where we are right now as a university student, land a job at Google like Jody, or Automatic and Apple like Javon, or Camir is at NVIDIA, Gavin is at this big cybersecurity company. Like, let's start with Gavin. How did you get that job there? So you said the website was one of those pull factors, but what was that process like?
Yeah, so the thing is that G5 is something that came much after, right? So when I just came to Germany, I was working with a company called P3 Communications, and I've since branched off and started to do my own. But to land that job, I applied online. So I applied, I believe it was I believe it was ZipRecruiter and LinkedIn. I'm not even sure which one of them actually landed the job, because I was bouncing between these different sites, applying for jobs. Um, but it was really just applying online. My interview was over the phone. I believe, or at least I'd like to believe, that when they called and started to question me, I did so well that, from that telephone interview, they actually offered me the post, because they asked me a bunch of technical questions, and I started to go on a tangent, telling them, going all in on it. And I believe from there, they after that telephone interview, I received the paperwork about 2 days later. About 2 days later, received the paperwork by email, took that to the embassy about a day or two later, and I had my visa within a week. So it was pretty quick. But applying online is something that worked for me, and I've seen it work for others, and it's becoming just a standard now. Just target those online job ads.
Right, online job ads. And you said a while ago, ZipRecruiter?
Yes, so there's ZipRecruiter, which is fairly popular, but based on the region that you want to go, there are different job sites which are more popular. So for example, in Europe, you have sites like Stepstone and Zing, which are very popular on the European side. And then when you're thinking about Canada and the US, you're looking at sites like Monster.com, ZipRecruiter also, and a few other sites. So based on the region you're interested in going to, there are some job sites which are very common or very popular. And here in the Caribbean, you have Caribbean jobs and a few others. So you still have to apply some
Research.
type of filtering, and research into it based on where you want to be.
That's an excellent point, Gavin. So everybody listening, just as he said, we may have Caribbean jobs and different sites like that. So you need to find the job site that corresponds to the region that you may want to work in. I'm going to go over to Javon now. Like, just let us know, what was your journey like in landing the job that you're in right now?
The one I'm in right now. Currently, I'm going back to Apple. I'm doing stuff on the Apple TV. How did I get into Apple? that one, that one was quite a interesting journey. I initially started applying for these companies like from last year at university. I think I maybe sent out like 50 or 60 applications. I only got one interview out of all of that. The rest of them were rejections. I think me and my friend at the time were having competitions who got rejected the most in the day. It was quite a battle until over that time we were learning each month passed, we're changing our resumes, changing our approach until we finally kind of got the hang of it. My approach, the online applications didn't work so well for me. I kind of realized I can't keep throwing the same stone there. It wasn't working for me. I instead took the approach of reaching out to the recruiters directly. Uh, Thankfully, in my day and age, everybody is pretty available online. So it took a little research, but I was able to find like the emails for the people or the hiring managers for the roles and reach out to them directly. And then that's when I kind of had more success, actually getting interviews and actually getting in front of these people. So that is actually how I kind of got through to Apple. I had just emailed an Apple recruiter, uh, a 2 paragraph email just kind of explaining who I am, what I'm interested, what my background looks like, and the role I was interested in. And I guess she agreed that it aligned, and then the interview process just kind of set up from there. And that's just kind of how I guess got to this current job. After getting the interview, it's a whole nother ballpark if you've ever read up about tech interviewing at some of these big tech companies. So that's a whole other discussion, but yeah, that's all I
All
got
right,
there.
great. So we have two avenues then. One, we've heard about the job sites, and two, we've heard research for the specific recruiters or HR managers, etc., that are hiring for the job areas that you're interested in. So that's two so far. Camir, what was your journey like to land the job that you're currently in?
So my journey kind of started in 2019, where I know I'll do this thing where if I'm traveling to somewhere new, I will either ask my friends, do they know people in that area that they think is somebody I should know, I will get along with, they work in the same field, or I'll just cold message people on LinkedIn. You can see the location if it's somebody that I think is in my industry and so on. I'll just cold message them and ask for. I'm big on information interviews, so like would love to take you to coffee just to find out more about what it is that you would do at XYZ company. And some people ignore you, some people take you on, and so on. So when I was in 2019, I was in San Francisco interning at a biotech company because for most of my PhD, I was very much sure I'll end up being a scientist, computational scientist for a traditionally biotech company. So I was interning biotech, and somebody told me about someone out there that work at NVIDIA, and they're doing cancer stuff at NVIDIA and deep learning stuff at NVIDIA for cancer, which I was curious about. So I messaged them on LinkedIn, we set up a coffee meeting. They told me about it, and they were headquartered out in California, and we met, and it was cool and fine. So fast forward to finishing my PhD last year, I honestly haven't even thought about NVIDIA since then, because in my mind, a lot of stuff they were doing in school, but I didn't want to be in California. I wanted to stay in New York, all that kind of thing. So I was, being recruited by different biotech companies. So I was probably a week away from like accepting one of these offers, and then somebody from NVIDIA reached out to me on LinkedIn. I was like, hey, we got your name from somebody, would love to talk. And I'm like, I haven't spoken to this person in a minute, but they sent my name up somehow. And even then, I was like, I'm not trying to go to California, but it's hard for me to turn down. I'm always open to conversations and seeing what is there. So got the conversation going. Come to find out, they have a New York office. I didn't even think. I just assumed the office is only in California, but they have a New York office, and that kind of just the ball kept rolling from there. And it went quickly from me going, accepting this offer for a biotech company to then working for NVIDIA doing biotech stuff for them. So it was kind of one of those things, and kind of one of those classic stories where it's good to constantly network and reach out. Okay, you never know where those connections going to lead, right? And the kind of impact you leave on people.
That's a very good point. And I like what you said about just cold calling or reaching out to your friends and friends of friends and saying,
Yeah.
hey, I don't mind going to coffee one day. Could be 30 minutes, could be a 15-minute phone call. Let's just find out more about each other and see if there's any mutually beneficial activities here that the both of us could engage in. So thank you for that point, Camir. So we've heard websites. 2, we've heard messaging the specific HR persons. 3, we've heard connecting with friends of friends.
What a pinch. Why your mask down?
Oh, I think somebody accidentally unmuted there. No problem at all. This is the Zoom land now. This is how our conferences go. I'm going to go over to Jody, but before I go over to Jody, I'm encouraging everyone to just start sending your questions in the chat so that once Jody finishes sharing her story, we can go into some questions. And yeah, over to you, Jody. So how did you land the job that you're currently in?
I think it's a combination of things. For every experience I feel as though I've had, there's always like a lot of things leading up to it. So I went to a hackathon probably in 2018 maybe, and I created this application for this company, and I won the track, well, the team, and I won the track. And so I got an internship at that company. And so I got a return offer from the company to join upon graduation. This kind of, it's a reputable company. It was kind of comfortable. It was my safety net. And then I went to Grace Hopper afterwards, and that was probably in the fall. And, you know, I was coming from the place that I'm going to interview companies now, because you go to Grace Hopper and there's a lot of different companies, and they just like shoving things in your face, or they just want to grab your resume. And so because I was coming from a place of, I already have this, it's all good, the company I want to work at was always Google. And so I went and I interviewed all the companies, and so in addition to Google, there was just one other company that I wanted to work at. But I was saving it in my back pocket. So for whatever reason, I went to the Google folks, I had them review my resume about 3 times or so, and I didn't submit it, so I kept it. And then it was just probably a couple weeks after, someone reached out to me on LinkedIn saying that they want to recruit me to work at Google, and I was just like, well, okay, they came to me, so at this point I don't really have anything to lose. And I started, because I already had my safety net, I started to just incrementally take my time with the process. I moved my interview from where they were trying to rush me, and I moved the interview, I scheduled it further out. And I went through the process of, you know, the tech interview, and what I did was the company that I wanted to, the other company that I found at Grace Hopper, the recruiter reached out to me around the same time to start interviewing. And so I did both of these interviews in tandem, using one to practice for the other, knowing that I had this in my back pocket, the offer that I didn't want. This experience, it's very dissimilar from what other folks usually experience. For instance, what Javon mentioned just now, it's usually folks send out a lot of applications, and usually they get a lot of rejections until they just sort of just like trickle down and they get to the tip of the triangle, which is the company that they want to work at. But this experience, you know, I was recruited, I had opportunities to sort of just like pick and choose what I wanted. And that's kind of how I got into this position currently at Google.
All right. Wow. Okay. So let's recap. We just heard 4 beautiful different ways of getting a remote job or getting a job in a foreign country. 1, we heard website. So finding specifically the website for the region that you are interested in working in. 2, directly emailing, messaging, etc. HR managers or persons who are in charge of recruiting. 3, utilizing your network, finding friends of friends. And Jody would have now mentioned or is adding to this list that she utilized conferences. So the Grace Hopper conference in particular. And I think that that's an excellent point that links back to something that one of the panelists said earlier about expanding your network through attending different webinars, conferences online. And I would add to that different community interest groups online. So for example, I'm interested in digital health. And to that extent, there's the Global Digital Health Network. There are many, like thousands of different networks online that you can join. join their emailing list, and they literally send out jobs every single day from all over the world, South Africa, Europe, etc., etc. And so, as you can see, there are many different ways to enter these industries and enter these countries, etc., to get jobs and find and build your career path. But it's up to you to first be willing, be excitable, and be willing to constantly put yourselves out there through one, having an excellent online presence, because if you're currently here based in Jamaica, the only way these people are going to see you is if you fly there, which is expensive. You can do it sometimes, yes, but the other way and the main way is that they need to find you virtually in the online space. So thinking about a website, and you can use easy drag and drop website builders that person still found impressive. I had found Wix in high school, and I used that to build out my first two personal websites, and persons were like, wow, look at this high school student with a fully built out website. I was like, yeah, drag and drop and use a template on Wix, right? So there are ways to do it that are very simple, and you can start to build the lifestyle or the career life that you want. And while the questions are rolling in, I'll add, the way I got the current remote job that I'm in is actually through volunteerism. So many of you, if you follow my profile, you'll see that I do a bunch of different volunteer work in tech, or in just tech advocacy, or for young women in tech, etc., internationally. And so I was volunteering on one of the youth councils for technology globally. And there was a position that opened for the current Global Youth Council in terms of like managing the council. I applied for it. I didn't get it, but the organization saw me and said, no, man, that girl have a buzz, right? We're going to give her a job in something else. And so I now work with the Transform Health Coalition, which brings together digital health companies across the world, well, companies and organizations, advocacy groups, etc., as a part of their core team that is kind of leading the overall charge and bringing all these coalitions and organizations together to push for digital health by 2030, or universal health coverage for 2030. So again, it may not be a clear-cut way for you to get into these industries or into these different job roles, but it's up to you to be willing to put yourself out there, even if you may get a no at first, right? So I would have been disappointed at first and say, man, I never get the one I was going for, but I got the one I was supposed to get. You get me? Yeah. So that being said, I saw one question come across in the chat. Someone was asking, what are the recruiter websites for the Canada region? I think Gavin responded there. All right, great. Gavin is just dropping gems. And as you can see, Gavin is responding to these questions. So if there are any more questions that you may have, feel free to send them. I see Aishi was saying that Grace Hopper sounds so familiar. Yes, that was a conference for that YCDI had given us the opportunity to go to as well, right, Aishiba? They had to switch it last minute, but nonetheless. So identifying those conferences and spaces that fit the community or the career group that you want to enter is going to be extremely important. And it's easier to go to these conferences now that we're all in the virtual space, and it's just like clicking a button to join online. But that being said, I'd ask everyone then, are there any other conferences or spaces, community groups, etc., that you would recommend for persons to either follow on Instagram or join their emailing list, etc., that would help them to secure and build that network and secure jobs abroad? Anyone?
So, well, there are, but before I mention the communities, in terms of people who are looking jobs overseas, one of the things that I find really helps to increase your chances, and this is more from a probability perspective, is apply to a large quantity of jobs. Right. So for me in cybersecurity, I do a lot of advocacy online. So people often contact me saying, hey, what tips do you have? I want to get this. And I often try to ask questions to understand what they've been doing. And it has become more of the norm where people just haven't really been applying to jobs. One person has told me that they're struggling to find cybersecurity jobs in the Caribbean. And I asked them how many jobs they applied to for the entire year, and they said one. So it might sound like a very basic tip, but apply it to the jobs, right? They are there, and it's free. So spend the time and apply to as many jobs as you can. Schedule time within your day where this is your job, application time, and send out those jobs. It's don't wait on someone to connect you directly to a company or some type of link. Spend the time and apply to the job, because if you apply to maybe 100 companies, it's possible that maybe just 10 or 15 might contact you, and in the end you might have 3 offers. But from a probability perspective, widen your pool of possibilities. So apply to the jobs. Now, in terms of the communities, I am a part of I'm a part of 2 communities. For those of you here who are software developers, there's the Jamaican developers community. They have a Telegram group, which is good. It helps to connect you with different people. I post opportunities there sometimes. I'm also a part of a group led by G5 called the Caribbean Cyber Support Team. And within that, we have a job bot that posts jobs automatically from Caribbean jobs. And we also share jobs from other places. And because a lot of us are merely Caribbean people in IT, wherever we are in the world, you'll find jobs being posted there from other parts of the world, right? So those are 2 communities that I'm personally involved in. And there's also the Facebook developer group, which is a WhatsApp group. And there you'll have just lots of developers. So people will hear about different things. So try to search out those different groups. But those are some. I'll also post it in the chat so that you have them and you can search for them. And if you need any help to directly get into the group, you can always just contact me afterwards, and I can send you the invite link. But those are 2 I'm personally involved in, and I believe is useful for people in Jamaica and the Caribbean to network with people like you and find opportunities.
All right, great. I see some more questions rolling in. Stefan is asking, and this one will be for Camir. What do you think of the possibility of getting an entry-level job in bioinformatics that is remote?
Is remote. I mean, I guess I'm curious. So a lot of times entering into bioinformatics at a lot of these companies is, I've seen generally is like master's level and up. I've seen I know now more and more undergraduate students, because it's fairly a new area that used to be only available at the grad level in terms of specializing. I've seen more and more undergrads in undergraduate schools in the US offering it as an undergrad major. But when it comes to securing that, remotely, I think the most likely way to go about that is kind of targeting kind of the big companies, so say like a Illumina or a 10x Genomics. Like if you can get at least following them on LinkedIn and social media and kind of seeing what kind of posts what kind of stuff they're posting about, I think that's where you're most likely to find, say, an entry level job that is allowed to be remote. Because the cool thing about bioinformatics is that it's one of the few areas in science where it is friendly to being remote, right? Like your lab is your computer, and you just need a server and an internet connection. So I think it's something that's possible, but it more than likely will be at these larger companies such as like Illumina and 10x Genomics. And they have another question: are there particular skills that employers in this field look for that can be assessed virtually? Yeah. So if you are going entry level, so generally that means you are not going to be said directing any research, because to direct research, you're generally going to be a PhD level scientist or master's level. And so they'll more look for proficiency, just like I said, in R, especially Python. A lot of the data cleaning and stuff is done in Python. Still, the statistics is done in R. So those kind of things is definitely going to be assessed. But if you are somebody who has done research before, a lot of these companies, regardless of the level, they like to assess just your research experience, regardless of what it is. So if you can point to any kind of research experience in a somewhere in a lab or something, I think that would be helpful as well. But generally, learning R, learn Python, that'll help you. And there are certain resources online, like Rosalind. I'll drop it in the chat that you can go on and do as essentially example bioinformatics problems and analysis and that kind of stuff to at least get you used to doing that kind of work.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Camir. I see that our time is running out, so I'm only going to ask 2 more questions. Number 1 is, how do I know an employer has an LMIA? which is a labor market impact assessment. I'm assuming that's what LMIA is. Does anyone know that answer? All right, no problem at all. I'm not sure what it is myself, in all honesty, but I'll do a Google search after this. All right, the next question is it possible to find jobs on LinkedIn without a tertiary education?
Yeah, of course. For everyone here, I don't have a degree, but I've done certifications. And for those of you who may not have done a bachelor's, but you have things that you believe are equivalent, I find that that people outside or just countries outside of the Caribbean region are more open to looking at non-traditional things. So they're more open to not just considering people who have degrees. And I'm also seeing that shift in the job descriptions that are coming out where they ask for certifications or equivalent or a degree or equivalent, and they are very open to that. So yes, it's very possible. I believe I'm a primary example of that. I've worked with lots of the big four audit firms in my early career, and I didn't have a degree. So it's very possible, and it really just comes down to you taking the initiative to put yourself in front of them so you have the opportunity to pitch.
All right, thank you so much. Does anybody want to add to that question? That would be the last one that we're asking from the audience.
I'll just add that if your goal was to, you know, land a job outside of Jamaica and migrate there, you'd I'd suggest doing additional research because I believe, for at least for the US and Canada, once you start going into like the H-1B visa process and the work permit process, even if the job has hired you, you could still be rejected just because you don't have that tertiary degree, because there are just certain things they'll have to tick off. And that's been an experience I've witnessed. So that's just a suggestion.
All right, thank you so much. All right, so the last question we're going to ask everyone is just, is there anything you want to plug, any new event you may have coming up, something you're working on that you'd like to share with our audience? If there's anything that you'd like to share with everyone, please go ahead, and we'll start with Jody.
Thank you, Daniel. If you have follow-up questions for me, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. My name is, as it's spelled here, it's Jody Simpson. In addition to that, as mentioned before, I am founder of techports.org, and we are running a program called the Bloom Project. There are two outcomes from this project. It's either you have something to add to your tech portfolio, or it's something that you could take and go on and work on after the program ends. But since I was going to be here today, we extended the application. It passed on the 15th to tomorrow. So if it's something that you'd be interested in, please feel free to apply. It's techports.org/the Bloom Project. And if you have any questions about that as well, please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn.
All right, great. So Jody is plugging Techports. Camir, what are you wanting to share with everyone?
I guess there's a few things. So I founded an organization that's built around career mentorship called Minds of Jamaica. So really what it does is it provides a platform for students, young professionals to connect in, more, long-term engagements with professionals who are Jamaican, whether in Jamaica and outside of Jamaica. I'll drop the Instagram and website in the chat, but you can sign up and, speak to people in tech, in medicine, in, the arts, all over. And then also for anybody who might be, curious about bioinformatics and computational biology, through that same organization, we've kind of launched a program that allows Jamaican high school and university students to do an actual bioinformatics project within the course of a week with scientists from Cornell, from Harvard Medicine, and so on. So I'll drop those links in the chat as well for people who might be interested in that.
All right, great. Going over to Gavin.
All right, sure. So if you're interested in developing a career in cybersecurity or data privacy, I would I'd encourage you to join the Caribbean CSPA. Membership is free. It's covered by the corporate sponsors. And we have lots of resources for you to choose from. We have a digital library which has ebooks for certifications, different areas of cybersecurity, pen testing, incident response. So it's a really useful resource if you're interested in building a career. You will have lots of things at your fingertips which you might not be able to find elsewhere. So I encourage you to join the Caribbean CSPA, become a member, and start to learn and develop your skills.
All right, thank you so much. And Javon, over to you.
I have nothing to plug, but my LinkedIn, just like Jody, is just my name. Definitely feel free to reach out if you ever need advice on tech interviewing. That's kind of, I guess, what I feel I can really help with. I've interviewed with a lot of tech companies, all of the big tech, and some other companies as well. And I'm open to giving advice with that. If you feel like you're there, I'm open to sending in referrals. If you'd like to come and work at Apple, where I'm at now, we're always hiring over there too. So I'm open to helping anybody who's interested. Feel free to reach out and I'll answer.
All right, so that's it, ladies and gentlemen. I've been your moderator for this session. My name is Daniel Mullings, and I'm the Guild President at the University of the West Indies Mona campus. It has been my pleasure to moderate this session with our amazing, amazing panelists, and I hope you've learned a lot about securing jobs remotely, the studying abroad route. Aishiba, I'm going to hand it right back over to you.